We're in the midst of visioning right now, and I'm so pleased to have Tonda and Doris and Brian leading us in this, because they love our church. They really love our church, and they love the people in our church. They love the past, they love the future, they love the present. And it's an honor to work together with lay leadership to help us make sure that coming out of this COVID thing, and we are going to be coming out of it eventually, I promise you, but that we have the chance to retool and refocus. And we get to be razor sharp toward the future. So many churches just plod along, particularly during COVID. We're almost a little bit depressed, a little bit overcast, a little bit uncertain for the future. These weeks are a reminder to us that we have nothing uncertain about our future, but that God is directing our paths. I want you to listen carefully today. Like I know you did last week, Tonda did such a splendid job explaining where we've been, what God's done in the past, the blessings of those. And today we're going to be listening to where we are, our strengths, where we are, our maybe shortcomings or opportunities that we can be better than we are, all to the glory of God. And then next week, it's you, Doris. Next week, we're going to be looking at what does our future hold. So it's all good. We all need to pay attention. At the end, I've got a word that, honestly, I really intended to just be a little closing word, just a little word here and there. And God's probably given me a brief but more powerful word than I ever expected. So it's going to be a good day. Get your listening ears on. Brian, would you share with us?
All righty, good morning. Whoa. If any time during the presentation you can't hear me, somebody let me know, okay? Because I don't want to be up here just blathering away and you can't hear. But as Pastor mentioned, I'm going to spend some time this morning talking about the present using a Strengths and Opportunities assessment. I'm also going to spend just a little bit of time catching you up on where we are in the process. And you guys in the sound booth are going to help me with slides. So if you'll go ahead and go to the first one, we'll get started here. So by way of reminder, we had a visioning and assessment committee that we formed in early 2020. And these are the names of the people who participated. And if you see any of them, say thank you, because they really did work hard and they were energetic and came with a lot of great ideas. If you go to the next slide, the committee had a couple of major outputs coming out of that effort. And one of those was the Strengths and Opportunities assessment that I'll be reviewing with you this morning. And then the other one was some visioning ideas. And I'll explain what I mean by that in just a moment. But if you think of the Strengths and Opportunities assessment, we were able, even during COVID, to get out and meet with a lot of the Sunday school classes. And so we were able to speak to almost 100 people, and maybe even more. I didn't keep a close count. But the point is that the assessment represents a pretty good cross-section of the church there because we were able to speak to a lot of people. And then when I mentioned visioning ideas, we're fortunate that Doris and Tonda have been professionally trained on a process that leads you to understand what a successful future might look like for your church. And it involves looking at the past, present, and future. And we did that as a committee. We did it. We went through the process. I found it very interesting. And then the church staff did it as well, and I got to participate in that session. And we have some ideas, but we didn't want to run this all the way across the finish line without involving everyone in the church in the process to the extent we could. So next slide. And it seems to have, here's the microphone. Okay, it's back. Our process for doing that is to take 3 Sundays. There they are. Okay, past, present, and future. And as the pastor mentioned, Tonda did a great job with the past last week, and if you didn't get to see that, please go out on Facebook and find the video. It's really powerful, and I see some heads nodding in the congregation. It was really good, and it lets you understand the vision that created this church, the vision of our initial pastor, and that's led to this $8 million in facilities that we have today. And you leave that presentation, it's only 15 minutes, but you realize we are stewards of that initial vision that established this church. And we were talking about it at lunch, and Michael said, "Wow, Dad, did you know all that?" And I said, "Well, not till Tonda told me I didn't know all that." So it's really good. I hope you take the time to do that. And then, of course, the future session is going to be next week. And it's at that week, I want you to bring your pencil and paper. Well, we'll have paper for you, but bring your pens because you'll get an opportunity to provide some input. So then we'll take that church input and combine it with the committee and the staff input, and then we'll come up with a final vision statement, okay? So that's how that works. Now, one more slide, and I want to show you how this all fits in, because if you just had a vision statement, not much would happen, right? I mean, it tends to go on the shelf, and that's good, but not really much will happen. You have to think about, well, we're here today, we want to be there in the future, what do we need to do? And so there's a Reaching New Heights committee that's going to consist of our ministers, our directors, and some lay leaders, and they'll be looking at that final vision statement. Where is it that we're wanting to go? What are our strengths that we can use to build on? What are our opportunities? And how do we move in that direction? And we'll try to spin out several projects. So this is where you, as the church, get the opportunity to participate. You can serve on one of those teams maybe, or serve supporting one of those teams, hopefully using your spiritual gifts. So that's kind of how this all fits together. All right, that's enough review. If you go to the next slide, one of the things we did for the visioning committee, one of the first things we did was sort of a situation assessment. And, okay. So the slide's a little different than I had imagined it would be. Okay. But anyway, we can deal with it. But families today are a lot more busy than they used to be. I mean, that's just the truth. A lot of times both spouses are working, outside the home, so it's just a lot more busy. Kids' activities are more abundant than ever before, and some of them are scheduled over your traditional worship times. That makes it harder. Some Christians are opting for maybe an online worship experience rather than in person. And during COVID, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because there's the risk of becoming ill or something like that. But that you don't get the same fellowship when you do it that way. And the percentage of Christians in America certainly is declining, and then it's more difficult for churches to be giving, people willing to give to churches. They want to give to a cause, not to the general budget that supports, the light bill or whatever. And so it's a little different today than it was, and if you read all those things and you think about them, and the meeting that we developed all those things, I almost felt like I'd binge watched 4 hours of CNN and 4 hours of Fox News. I mean, it was really depressing. You hear statistics like 90% of the churches today are shrinking. And I said, I got to go out. I'm an engineer. I have to go look at the data. What's it really say out there? So if you go to the next slide, I guess the question, this sets up the question, are declining attendance and giving just the new normal for churches in America? Is that something that we have to accept? So the next slide, we went, I took the first top two hits I found on a Google search. I didn't look for things that confirmed my opinion. I just looked for things that were reputable. But the Pew Research Center does a lot of research. This is from pre-COVID. And they looked at the number of Christians in America, and it surprised me that the decline is not like you might hear if you just focus on the headlines. It went down 11 million people, 11 million adult Christians in 10 years. And that's not good, but it's not, that everyone is abandoning the faith in droves. There are still 167 million Christians in America. And we also looked at the attendance habits of those Christians, this study did. And in 2009, it was 46% were attending weekly. In 2019, it's still 44%. And in 2009, 17% were coming once to twice a month. And in 2019, that had increased to 18%. So that's pretty stable attendance, and there are a lot of Christians that are still out there. So yes, the percentage of Christians has gone down, but that's because the population of America has gone up. Now, it's not that there's no headwind, but the headwinds are not as severe as you might think if you just focus on the headlines. If you go one more slide, there's a Lifeway study, again, from before COVID, and this study looked back at a 3-year period, so it was probably 16, 17, and 18 based on the date of the study, and they found that 39% of the churches are growing, 33% are more or less stable, and it's like 28 are declining by 6% or more. And we fit kind of in that middle bucket there. But that's not really the point of the slide. That says that 39% of the churches have figured out how, with the Lord's help, to actually grow. So one more slide. What have we learned here looking at this research? And I'm sorry, I'm just an engineer and I have to do this, but what it says is that millions of Christians are still faithfully attending church, and with the Lord's leading, church growth is possible. It's not an impossible task. We're not Mission Impossible here. This is something we can do with the Lord's leading if we all join together and pray about it. So I was encouraged by that research. Now, if you go ahead to the next slide, we need to talk about our strengths. What have we got going for us as a church? And one more then. We have a rich heritage that we're building on. And I'm just going to go through some of these. We have theologically sound teaching in this church. Our pastor preaches the word correctly and as it should be preached. Our Sunday school teachers teach the word as it should be taught. I'm very thankful for that. I probably wouldn't even be here if it wasn't for that. But we have a church who is built upon the Bible and the principles of the Bible and correctly interpreted and correctly applied. And that's very important. We have a lot of committed members who really care about the church. And, a church is not the building. You care about the church because what the church is doing, the positive impact that it's having. And we're going to get to a slide to discuss some of that in just a minute. We have very talented staff. Our ministers all have gifts in certain areas that they use very effectively. It also goes to our church office. Our admin assistants, Judy and Annetta, are very talented. And then we have maybe the best maintenance staff. Greg has built a really great maintenance staff here at the church, maintenance and housekeeping. These folks actually do projects we used to outsource, but we don't have to outsource and pay for that anymore because these guys can do them internally. So we've got really good people. We have an award-winning daycare. We have an outstanding daycare. I talked to Lisa Harris before this meeting to get a count. We had 116 kids in the program. Looks like we might be going to go up to 121. Can you imagine the impact that's having on those kids and on those families? 121 kids and their families are being ministered to because of this church. That's something that's really strong, and I don't think we celebrate that enough. Our children's ministry and vacation Bible school programs, those are strong. Now, it's an area that I think we're overly dependent on a few very committed leaders. And actually, I thought this before I came today, and in the bulletin, it says Casey's looking for some help. So there's an opportunity to plug in right now. But we do have a strong program, and it's really important to have a strong program because when you reach the children, you reach the parents. And it is that demographic in America that we're worried about. Those children and parents are not coming to the faith like they did in years past, and that is a problem. We have a growing youth program thanks to Logan, and we have a growing young adults ministry that Matt is leading. We have a senior adult ministry. It's a little bit hard to read at that range. I guess I could put my glasses on if I wasn't so vain. But we've had a senior adult ministry that Kathy Pageant has led for a long time, and it's very good. She's done a great job with that. We have strong Sunday school classes. I guess I should say life Bible study classes, but I'm old school. But we have classes where people are holding their class accountable. They're lifting one another up in prayer, and they're ministering in the community just beyond their class. And these are some strong Sunday school classes. We have great facilities, a great location, and no debt, which we recently celebrated. That's fantastic. And then we've mentioned the giving to the Southern Baptist Convention, the tithe upon our receipts, that 10% that's going to the Southern Baptist Convention. What we receive, 10% goes to the Southern Baptist Convention. And then you'll notice we have strong participation in the Annie Armstrong, Lottie Moon, Golden State missions offerings. Those are fantastic. And here, I just want to say something about church giving. Our numbers are down because of COVID. Certainly they are. But our giving, I looked at the data, engineer again, I looked at the data, It's only down a little bit. You guys have really sustained and continued to support this church and its ministries. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you what some of those are. And it gets a little crowded here. But we have a family promise. We're helping families who've lost a place to live have somewhere to live until they can get back on their feet. We have Operation Christmas Child. That's the shoe boxes. We've had people come and stand right here and tell us about the tremendous impact that ministry has. We have a benevolence committee that many of you never seen because it just works behind the scenes. Arlene Helton especially is leading that committee, but we're helping people when they need it in our community. We've had the Park Service for decades that really affects, a great opportunity for people out there at the park to hear about the Lord. Even if they're gone for the weekend, they get a chance to hear the message. We have backpacks and school supplies programs for children. We have a mission house where missionaries who are on furlough can come and have a place to live. We have one living there now. We have Meals on Wheels and a food pantry that are meeting the needs of the hungry in the community. We have a jail ministry that's led I don't know how many people to the Lord. We have winter coats and clothes closet projects that help people in need of clothing. We have the Christmas bell ringing for the Salvation Army that raises money for a good cause there. And then a lot of individual Sunday schools have programs that help things like Hope House or things like that where they donate to, or other local missions. And I couldn't get them all on the list. I know there are other ministries that are going on in church, but the font was going to be unreadable. I think if it had gone one more size closer or smaller, I would have had to wear the glasses. So those are some of the other ministries that we have as a church. Now, if you go to the next, thank you. Where can we improve? Okay, I've never worked in an organization that couldn't get better. Never been to a church that couldn't get better. So we're not unique here, but there are some things that we can work on. So one more. Next slide. There we go. All right. One thing this is a shift over time. I don't think we have as many members in service as we did at one time. We need actually to get to where more people are actually finding a way to serve. And we need to be maybe intentional about creating opportunities for you to serve. And the process that we're going to go through in this visioning will probably do that. But all of you have a spiritual gift of some sort. God gave you a gift. And ideally, every person in the church would have a job, and that's what we'd like to see. Worship engagement, it's how energetic are we in worship? Sometimes, we struggle there, and I admit, I do too. I think if you can focus on the words, it really helps. I found myself this morning watching our drummer and thinking, my goodness, look at all the different drums he's got. Look at all those cymbals. How does he know when to hit each one of those? I envy your talent. But I need to think about other things. Communications. Communications are always difficult in any large organization, but we struggle there. You might ask yourself, will more people come to the Lord if we get good at communications? Well, I don't know if directly, but it enables everything else that we do, and it makes everything else we do easier. So that's something we could work on. Evangelism and outreach. Our pastor does a lot of our evangelism, and we need to spread that around. That's his gift, and it's good. But others in this church have that gift as well. And could we come together to organize a group looking at how do we do a better job of evangelism and planning events where others of us can participate and help with that, and outreach. Fellowship opportunities. COVID has made this really difficult. We can't get together like we used to, but I remember many times going to the park on a Sunday afternoon or whatever and having a dinner and just getting to talk to people that I didn't ordinarily get to speak with. And it's important to know the people with whom you are worshiping. It builds the church. It makes it a stronger church if you can do that. And hopefully we'll be through COVID someday and we'll be able to do that. Discipleship training. Yes, we need to do that. We're trying to get women's Bible study started again, and I think that's good, but we need programs like that. Then in the area of children, I mentioned that as a strength, but we're overly reliant on, I think, a few two-peanut people. But, if you can get really good in children's ministry, what if we took that on as an initiative? Can we get really good in children's? Because that's a big way to bring families into the church. And then visitors. Okay, better job of connecting with visitors. And here, we have visitors come in, and some of you do an outstanding job. You just inherently chase people down and get to know them. Others of us not so well. I think I introduced myself to Rebecca Burton 3 times before I remembered her name, which is kind of embarrassing, but names are not my thing. You know, if she had a number, I'd probably remember that. But anyway, visitor care, we could strive to become excellent in the area of visitor care. Now, there were probably 100 items below each of these, 100 more bullets on the list. I've just picked some of the top level ones. And what we'll do, again, to finish this up, we'll take that Strengths and Opportunities assessment, we'll take that final vision, we'll have the Reaching New Heights team, and then we'll hope to spin off efforts that will lead us towards that vision that we've all said. So, one more slide. The end. Yes. All right. You know, the best presentations out of these 3 are going to be the first and last. I mean, you know, if you can't make it interesting, at least make it fast. So I'm done. Thank you.